Hi, and welcome to Design for Life. I'm Pastor Dan Axtell.
And I am Tina Prescott.
So excited to be on this journey with you. Each week, God has given us more and more opportunities to just be encouraged to be the man or woman that God created me to be. And Tina's here to tell us a little bit about her story of how God just did something miraculous, but it wasn't necessarily the way that we think God should have done it. And so let's just unpack that a little bit. You went through the Design for Life process as part of a team that was designing a new curriculum. I was on that team with you, so I remember my version of it, but I want to hear yours. But along the way, God spoke through that, and I remember women's ministry was on there, and you weren't that excited about it. So back us up and kind of tell us the story of how, getting involved in leading women's ministry ended up on your blueprint for life.
Sure. So I love doing any type of vision planning, futuristic strength finders type of things. So this was a very fun process for me. I think it's really neat I love the process of looking at your talents and your desires, your just strength finders, all those kind of things, the things that interest you. And so in that, you broke it into 3 categories, which was home, church, and work. And when I pulled together my different talents, if you will, my design, what kind of fell out was women's ministry in terms of there was a clear need in our church as we had just rolled off of a fantastic retreat. But that was a one-time event, and we didn't have a women's ministry team or a women's ministry leader. The reason why I wasn't particularly thrilled about it is because I've never felt like that it was something that I was seeking to do, but it was something that almost wrote itself on the paper because of the pool that I found after I did the design and saw the different strengths I had and the unmet need within the church. So there was other things too that I had on that paper, not just that. Some things rise to the top and some don't, and I feel like God chooses which ones, and that seemed to be the one that rose.
I'm glad you pointed that out because along the way, we've had many people, I don't know, 300 or so people have taken through this process over the years. And it can be a little overwhelming when you look at your blueprint and you're like, wow, there's like all these things to do. And you feel like you need to walk out that door and just go knock them all out, right? Yeah. And yet you're saying there were some things on the list that still haven't really manifest into anything. They're just were on the list and they didn't happen. But meanwhile, God really launched you into this women's ministry leadership role that has been, from my perspective, amazing. So, it's good to remember everything on your list isn't something that you need to equally give attention to. It's a starting point. So it was on your list. Some other things were on your list. How did you go from there to actually getting involved in leading the women's ministry?
So what I'll say is I was looking at the different list, and I really do think God just chose that. And I was obviously having a conversation with my husband, Mark, and there was still that void in women's ministry. And I said, hey, I've been thinking about this. And he immediately ran to you, I think I told you. And there you have it. No, it's just, God really blessed this, and it was so clear. It's been clear now throughout this last year with COVID, and that women's ministries remain strong, and people have said yes and stepped up, that this was a time and place and appointment, and it was for me. But I didn't know that at the start, right? So I had other things on that list that have not yet been appointed and timed for me yet, or maybe ever. That's the other thing, is the freedom. This isn't just creating a vision board of hey, this is everything I want to do in my future. This is really just working with women and friends and flushing through different things and having them speak into your life and you speak into theirs. And through the process of quarterly checkups, they've given me permission of cross that off, why that wasn't maybe meant for you, or something that I thought I should be that doesn't really fit me. And so it's a very dynamic process. And it's going to change. And some things that you thought maybe you were pursuing have become more or less important, especially with this year in COVID. But one of the things, a clear takeaway from the Design for Life was the women's ministry that so clearly rose to the top of anything else I had on that sheet. And that doesn't always happen. It's not always so clear, but in my process, it was very clear.
Yeah, and you've mentioned throughout this whole thing an awareness of what other people were speaking into your life. So you had this on your list. How did it go from on your list to like something you were actively doing? Well, it was a lot of input from other people. And so I think, for each one of us as we're going through this process to realize we're not doing this in a vacuum. So you mentioned your cohort group and how you met quarterly and people spoke into your life and you listened, right? And I think we all have to just pause on that for a second. You listened. It's hard sometimes when people speak into your life and you're like, you don't know me. And certainly sometimes people speak out of turn. But being willing to hear from people, that is a key part of this Design for Life process. And so I just want to encourage all of you. You have a cohort. You're doing this together with your group. Listen, let people have input into your life because God can speak through other people to help us get where we need to be. This wasn't your life passion. It wasn't your bucket list. This was just something that rose to the surface and then God ignited it. So let's talk about women's ministry. So you got involved. What happened? How have you led in women's ministry? How have you seen God show up in that?
Right. So what I will say is I came willing, but not necessarily with a plan, just willing. And so I did reach out to some women and I said, I'm willing to be the spearhead here, but I would love for you guys to join my group. And I want this to be a group. And so they said yes. And I specifically sought out a group of women to have diverse ideas, diverse thinking. We created a vision, we created a new name and structure and everything. And so unlike other areas of my life, I didn't come in with a big plan, which is why I am really just so pleasantly thrilled that it's worked out so well because it wasn't something I was definitely seeking after. I didn't come in with a big plan. I came in willing. That was about it. And I've built, not I, God has allowed these women to come alongside of me. So we're a team of about, I think 7 or 8. So a pretty good size. And that allows for a lot of different thinking, a lot of different ideas. And we've managed to just create a lot of synergy and fun, even in a very difficult year. So more to come on that.
You are the fun and games department. So, I think it was exactly what our church needed at that time as well. But there's so many moving parts here. And we recognize God is the one who puts all the pieces of the puzzle together. And so this Design for Life process, he uses it as part of getting us where we belong. He used other people. He used the curriculum. He used your willingness. I mean, on and on. But the women's ministry here, the Arise Women's Ministry, has been such a blessing to so many. And for all of us who've been watching you do it, it seems so obvious this is what you should be doing. But again, this was part of a process. So it was the willingness to say yes that made all the difference. It was the willingness to show up. It was the willingness to trust God, to trust others, which is hard for us to do. And God's used that to launch you into a place that has been a blessing to a number of women, and I'm sure so many more yet to come. So thank you so much, Tina, for saying yes to God, yes to this process, and just serving faithfully as the women's ministry leader here at Res Life.
Well, thank you. I will just say that it's a really good journey. I think there'll always be something good that comes out of this process, and just hold on tight because it probably might be unexpected as well. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.